The crypto market today looks like a small dumpster fire that's inside a bigger dumpster that is also on fire on a day when we likely have some hawkish tone from the Fed, Jerome Powell, FOMC today. What all seemed like tailwinds seeming like headwinds today at the moment. Will we continue to correct? Where will the bottom be? Is this normal? Are we in a brand new bear market? And what's happening behind the scenes? I have one of my favorite guests, Josh Frank, here to discuss that and likely more, because I never know what we're going to end up discussing. And of course, Texas West Capital on the back half of the show. You don't want to miss this one, guys. We're going to talk about the pain. We're going to talk about the blood. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Even if you don't like the market, you'll do it for me. Gonna go ahead and just bring on Josh now. Hey, man, great market, terrific. But you said you're not paying attention because you're in such pain from the Knicks game last night.
Awful. I can't even. I haven't been able to function for the last 12 hours.
It's good. Honestly, I think the Knicks did you a favor if they kept you from watching price action or seeing what was going on in the market today. Obviously, a quick look at CoinMarketCap, whole lot of red. 12.
Hey, look at the 1 hour. Look at the 1 hour. It's all about perspective.
Nice bounce. Actually, I think that this is a local bottom. I can tell people why later, but I'm seeing a lot of signals. I don't think it's bottom necessarily, but local bottom. Yeah, but I mean, ETH 11%. Look at that, outperforming Bitcoin the last 7 days. But then you get down to the Solana, down 22%. Doge down 22%. This is in a week. Shiba 21%. Avalanche 18%. Look at Tron. Up 4.47% on the week. Just killing it. Crushing it.
No comment.
I mean, I will say a lot of people have to buy Tron, I guess, to use USDT on Tron, which is the most popular place to use USDT. So maybe that's the reason. Could not possibly be any sort of other reason, like, somebody holding up the price or anything like that.
No comment.
Still no comment. I tried to give you the bait, but yeah, man, we got Bitcoin down, 58,000, bottomed below 57,000 today. I just took a look, and more than half of the people who have bought the Bitcoin spot ETF are now underwater. We've seen sustained outflows there. So I guess we'll see if those buyers are paper-handed or diamond-handed. And if you take a look, I mean, even just quickly at a chart, let me pull up the right one. I mean, it's a big gap of air down to about 52,000 to 50,000, right? There's just kind of nothing there.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about the ETF and what's going on as well. So
let's do that.
I mean, I think there were a lot of misconceptions that the ETF purchases from the beginning were institutional, and they were not, right? So all along, all of these purchases have been primarily driven by retail. So, I'm speaking with some of the larger ETF issuers, and you see that in the 13F filings, right? So, the different fund managers have to file 13Fs quarterly where they show their positions that they have in public markets. And, what we saw is that there weren't that many institutions in the ETF from the get-go. But I mean, the numbers that I was hearing from the issuers going back a month was that 90% of their flows so far had been from retail, right? And so, I think it's just something that's important to note is it's more retail money that flood into the market, but the floodgates of institutional capital, which we've talked about as being the really big impetus for major price movement, is going to take time, and that still hasn't happened yet, right? And just because we're seeing some outflows now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But I think it's just important to note, what kind of happened in the market here is people got very euphoric about the ETF approval, and I think rightfully so. And lawsuits that were won against the U.S. government, a number of other things. Retail flooded into the market, and then in classic crypto fashion, everyone thinks they missed the boat on Bitcoin. They start throwing their money into other things, and then they go further and further and further down the risk curve. And once we start getting into things like throwing money at, Joe Biden and Gary Gensler coin, right? It's usually a signal, right? It's some form of a signal that, all right, people are going further down the risk curve. But if you think about what drove the last bull market, not just from a token perspective, but from an equity perspective, from a valuation perspective, a lot of that was driven by real institutional capital entering the space, whether that be from sovereign wealth funds. We obviously saw Temasek and GIC in Singapore led the last round for Fireblocks, for Chainalysis, for a lot of the big Falcon X, for a lot of the big crypto companies. We also saw in Canada, we saw Quebec and Ontario teachers and other, other allocators within Canada get involved in the market, right? And in order for this market to do well, and I think to sustain itself, obviously we want retail to come back in full force. And I don't think that's happened yet, right? I think a lot of the people that are in the market are the same people. And we can go through some data on like Twitter activity and some kind of gauges for that if you want.
Sure.
But I think we need to start seeing funds raise more capital. And so one of the biggest things for me, and one of the biggest things that I look at, is basically trends in how much capital funds are raising. And we actually track this. And I can kind of share my screen here.
Yeah, go ahead. Down at the bottom,
So,
present.
this is not 100% complete, but
We've seen some big raises announced. I mean, I think it's an Andreessen doing $1 billion. I know Galaxy, I think, had a huge raise.
yeah,
I know the
you can
DNA
see
guys
it.
down in Puerto
We
Rico
have the
are
data
back.
here, right? And so what I'm kind of looking at is, so this is just if you are a U.S. reporting fund. So a lot of these funds, by the way, are report to the U.S., but also have feeder funds that are offshore, right? So they're receiving funds from multiple different directions. But what you can see here is basically the total amount of capital raised and the value of the last raise. So DBA just announced 18 million. Blockchain builders, whatever this is, they raised another $4 million. So there's some money. 1KX raised another $153 million. So there is money flowing in. Keep in mind that these filings are annual.
Right.
Polychain just raised about $100 million for their latest venture fund across these two different entities.
Yeah, and I can see that 500 million Galaxy down there.
Yeah, but this is the Solana thing. This
Right.
is the SPV for Solana, I believe.
To buy OTC Solana.
At a discount. Yeah. So, but the point being is, what we want to start seeing is, and look, some of this data is delayed, right? Because it's an annual filing, right? You basically file a Form D, which is the first time you file that you've raised capital, and you say like, okay, we just raised $50 million from 20 investors. And then every year you file an amended Form D called a DA, where you update the amount of money that you raised. So for example, if somebody last raised 6 months ago, they're not going to file for a while, right? They're not going to have to file for a while. So this data is a little bit delayed. But what I'm really looking for is, for this market to really take off, we need to see funds raising a ton of money, right? And if funds, it's both VCs and hedge funds, right? VCs to kind of lay the seed, lay the groundwork of crazy valuations and crypto stupidity that we all come to know and love. And
we were seeing in a month and a half
right
ago.
And why were we seeing that, right? Why were we seeing that? The reason we're seeing that is if you look at the market, right, the only way to make money in crypto scalably is with L1 and L2 investing if you're a big fund. Because if you think about it, all of these big equity deals, right, whether that be into some of the companies that I mentioned earlier, some of these other crypto companies that raise it over $1 billion valuation, right, or even in the hundreds of millions of dollars, no investors have had an exit. If we look at acquisitions in crypto all time, the largest acquisitions, you're talking like CipherTrace by MasterCard for a few $100 million, Curve by PayPal for a few $100 million. Like Coinbase has bought a couple of things for $150, $200 million, but there really haven't been the big, mining space has had some public listings, but outside of the mining space, it's really Coinbase on the exit side. And so if you're an investor and you're looking at the space, as an investor, you want to get a return, right? And if you're like, look, I'm going to give an equity company money and I don't know what the path to an exit is, it's really hard to underwrite that deal. But if you look on the liquid token side, right, if you're a VC, you could put your money in an L1 or L2, and clearly those are the ways to get scale, right? And that's why we see all the largest raises that have happened are, whether that be Monad, whether earlier it was Sui and Aptos, and there's
what about EOS, man? What about EOS?
Sorry, go for it, Scott.
Don't forget EOS.
Yeah, well, EOS much earlier, but I think that was before that narrative even caught on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Telegram, when they originally raised, obviously they returned the money. Now Ton is doing very well, but the only way to get scale is to invest in L1 and L2s, and so that's why you see these gigantic checks being deployed. Because if you're Paradigm, for example, or you're Andreessen and you've raised a few $1 billion, right? You can't go like, how many DeFi projects are you to invest in? Like 300 DeFi projects?
Get to $20,000 at a time.
Right, exactly.
To
and so the only way, and so I think we're going to continue to kind of see that trend. And the really important thing for investors, and I think we're actually going to see, the reason that I'm bullish longer term is I think that investors are going to have really good returns and really good DPI. So basically distributed to paid in capital, the amount of money that they're returning to LPs. And the reason I say that is if you look at a lot of these new deals that are going live, like WorldCoin, a lot of crypto funds got in the seed round at a couple $100 million valuation. That thing is trading at, let's say, 50 billion or 60 billion today. So they made a 300x. Some people got, like ZK Sync, Monad, Say, all of these projects, right? And we can pull up the list of investors in some of these things. You can see the funds that are going to return capital. I can pull it up.
Which is wild because it's once again the old crypto, I don't want to say scam, but like retail just gets destroyed and the VCs and early insiders are actually making a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, like you can look at like here, for example, on WorldCoin as an example. And there's a lot of
it up yet. Your screen is not up yet. But
no. There's a lot of these things, right? So like we can see here, like Coin Fund got in on the Series A of WorldCoin. Hypersphere got in on the Series A. Multicoin got in on the Series A, right? So the Series A was, I think it was $1 billion valuation. WorldCoin today, the token. Let's go to the token.
I got it if you need it. Yeah.
Is trading at a $45 billion valuation. So you 45 extra money. So for example, if you put $5 million in, that $5 million today, granted, the tokens are not all liquid and we can look at the vesting schedule, but you're talking in the range of $225 million. And you might have put $5 million in out of a $100 million fund. And so the point being is a lot of this movement that we're seeing with a lot of these tokens coming out of the gate with really large launches, obviously that's cooled down a little bit in the last few weeks, right? You're going to start seeing funds have great returns. And hopefully on the back of that, you're going to see new institutional capital flowing into the space because funds are going to say like, we returned 10x on the fund or 5x or 20x or whatever. And I think that's going to send the next wave of capital in, but I think it's going to be a little bit delayed. But that's not Bitcoin. That's the rest of the market. But we need that to happen for the market to prop up. We need to see that flow of capital, and that needs to start not from family offices and high net worth going into funds, not from retail, but from real institutional allocators writing $500 million checks into Andreessen and other funds.
But Andreessen is raising $1 billion. So, I mean, they're going to try. So they believe that the timing is still there. The fact that we're seeing these kind of large announced raises
for crypto, right? So that's
right. But have they deployed that? I mean, to your point, like why raise more if you can't get the $4 billion in?
Are majority
they have to in a few years. Yeah, they have to. I wonder how they deployed $4 billion. You might know, but I have no idea.
Well, I just saw something that they just bought a bunch of tokens. I don't know if that was public.
So they're doing OTC liquid deals to get.
Yeah. They're holding liquid tokens. I don't know if this. I think this just went live. I think apparently they bought $80 million worth of OP tokens out of OP's treasury directly. That just came out this morning. So with a 2-year locks at a discount, right? So yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways, but yeah, I mean, they're buying liquid tokens in size too, right? But that's good. That props up the market. We need that. Like, if you want this market to continue, we need to see these flows of institutional capital in. It's not the only thing. Retail is very important. Retail in Korea has done a great job in moving the market, but we're not at the point yet where like U.S. retail is really here.
I'll float you my theory. When U.S. retail comes back, whenever Dogecoin makes a new all-time high, because everyone thought retail was going to come back when Bitcoin made a new all-time high. Then we surpassed it and it didn't happen. And everyone's underwater on NFTs and Doge. So if we can get Bored Apes and Doge back to near all-time highs, then the people who were here before might have interest in coming back. That's my theory. And so all this meme coin pre-sale, all the things we're talking about before that institutional capital that you're mentioning comes in, that's just more supply of random things being added to a market that has no more demand outside the Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah, I mean, here you can see, let me share this. So here's just, and we can look at Dogecoin too, it might be interesting. But here's, let me just zoom in a little bit. Here's the red line is daily tweet volume. So you can see, spikes in daily tweet volume, and the blue line is 30-day average. So if we look at kind of the peak point that we got to was significantly below in terms of average, below kind of where we were at in 2021. January was kind of the peak that we saw in terms of the average number of tweets, but it's still relatively high. But you can see, obviously, this is kind of going down. We can look at Dogecoin though as a comparison to see kind of where that's at. I haven't pulled this up yet. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. So I think that is a really good gauge for retail, and you can see that that spike never came back.
No, one Elon mentioned, and we're back, baby. So
I think he has mentioned
I know,
it.
yeah, he doesn't swing it anymore like he used to because people aren't paying attention. They're underwater. They've sold, and to me, that's where they're going to come from. So, I mean, talking about the cycle and where we're at, like if you just take a look at a halving cycle, there's no surprise we're getting I think we're at a 24% total retrace right now from the top at 74,000. These are still very shallow retracements relative to previous bull markets. Right. I think this at 24, 23, 24, wherever we're at is the largest or on par for the 3 or 4 that we've had in this bull market. But in previous bull markets, they were 30 to 40%. And that was normal. So is this just the normal post-halving retrace, boring summer, parabolic fall that we've seen every time?
I think it's also macro. Macro is retracing, right? I mean, the NASDAQ sold off 2% yesterday, right? So Bitcoin is not a risk. Bitcoin right now is behaving as a risk on asset. Sometimes it behaves as a risk off asset. It depends on people's perspective, and it depends on who's in the market. The more institutions in the market, the more it might behave risk off potentially or uncorrelated. More, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Right now it's behaving risk on.
Yeah, I mean, April I had just seen this. Bitcoin faces worst month since FTX crash with ETF demand cooling. 16% in April, most since November 2022. So a pretty significant downturn.
We also doubled, right? So, it's also healthy to retrace a little bit on a double.
I mean, triple off the bottom or more.
Yeah,
or 4 times off the bottom.
I mean,
think
Solana,
the year opened at 42. The year opened at like 42. So we're still up, 50% on the year more. And then,
here's all the different.
No, not quite. At 25%. Yeah.
Here's all the different time frames.
25%. Yeah.
Yeah, we're up 100% on the last 365 days, 31% on the year.
Yeah.
So
I thought, yeah. Is that
that's
for Bitcoin specifically? Yeah.
43% February, 14% March. And
this is our best run since like 21.
I mean, look at all these months in a row: 4%, 24, 9%, 9%, whatever, 3% pullback, but then 43 basically moved up for 7-8 months in a row. So, pullbacks are, and we can look at correlations as well as kind of interesting.
So is nothing here concerning you then? Like the fact, a lot of people said if we break 60, it's the end of the bull market, and none of that matters to me. But
I don't think that matters. I think what matters is are retail going to be interested and are institutions going to be interested? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that matters more than, look, I'm thinking in longer time frames than next week or next month. Like, yeah, Bitcoin can pull back next month. I wouldn't be surprised. It can continue to pull back. But I think the question is, do we still see real institutional flows? And I mean, look, it takes time for RIAs to get approval and to get set up to offer their clients Bitcoin exposure. It takes time for Bitcoin to get added to a lot of different platforms. It takes time for institutional allocators to get comfortable with crypto again. And I'm having the conversations with the sovereign wealth funds, and they are more interested in crypto. Like we just saw, for example, one of the Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth funds just led an investment round. It's granted it's a smaller VC that they have, but they led an investment round for a crypto company, right? And so, at the end of the day, is the real capital excited? Are they interested in the space? You look at the Middle East and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and other, other regions are creating, creating great policy that's going and targeting crypto companies moving to those regions. And I think that the sovereigns and wealthy families will follow that, and the capital will flow and the capital will follow. And I think that's going to prop up the market, right? And that's the biggest thing to watch. Like if one of these guys, Polychain, Multicoin, Paradigm, Coin Fund, any of these guys, right? These are just examples of names, come out and say we raised $1 billion or we raised 500, and you keep seeing that, that's eventually going to flow down to tokens, right? And I think that's something that you want to be able to front run that capital deployment cycle.
Okay, so then do you view what's happening right now as a buying opportunity?
It depends on your time frame. I mean, it depends on your time frame. Like if your time frame is long term on Bitcoin, why not
obviously
put a little bit in? I'm not saying deploy all your cash, but like, and obviously not investment advice, but I bought a little bit at this price, not a huge amount, but
Me too.
like I paid 10% of the cash I have set aside for crypto I deployed today. So it's not a huge number, but it's,
Was that just into Bitcoin, or are you looking at all coins? Yeah.
Just into Bitcoin today.
Yeah. Because if you think Bitcoin's going to have more downside,
well, I think there's much more
altcoins
downside risk in alts than there is in Bitcoin. I mean, I think everyone pretty much agrees with that, right? Like, I think, look, alts have more upside. Bitcoin's got more downside. So if you're concerned about your downside, like Bitcoin is very liquid. I can get into cash the second I need to get into cash, not moving markets. And I'm not moving markets on all coins either, right? But the point being is it's a more liquid and less volatile asset. I feel more comfortable holding. And I mean, I would say there is zero doubt in my mind that Bitcoin will break its all-time high again.
Yeah,
like I have no doubt that that's going to happen. So
yeah, same. Yeah, so you talked about how the main capital goes into L1s and L2s because they're huge and liquid. Are there any new useless L1s and L2s that will probably go up in price anyways that you've seen coming out?
I have no comment on utility of any of these things, but I think there's a
because
lot.
we need more L2s because we don't have enough of them. So much demand.
Yeah, look, look.
I don't blame them all for trying, but they can't all survive. I mean,
look, broadly speaking, 90% of startups fail, right? I mean, it's a stat that everyone likes to throw out, right? And so, look, some of these L1s. Look, there's an L1 that's going to launch this year, which is going to become a top 10 or 20 market cap coin. No idea what it is, but I'm sure it's going to exist, right? Every cycle we see that, right? We see, like, I think the last cycle was Polygon. Avalanche moved a lot. Obviously, Solana was kind of within that cycle and is in this cycle again, right? So we always have, and then there's tokens that had their cycle and are, now 100 by market cap, right? I mean, do you ever pull up the Wayback Machine on CoinMarketCap before?
It's literally like my favorite thing is looking at what the top 10 was in 2017.
I mean, let's look at what the top 10. Let's look at the top 20 in the 2021 cycle versus now. I mean, I think that's a fun thing to do. Let me see if I can remember where it is.
I've used the Wayback Machine, but I don't know where that specific thing is.
So let's look at the top 20 that exist today. Toncoin, I think, is the story of this cycle, and I think rightfully so. And
Solana. I mean, Solana was $8.
And Solana, Toncoin and Solana, I think right now are the stories of this cycle. I think Near has had a lot of movement because of the AI thing, and others too. I mean, Aptos has been gaining a lot of traction and some other projects. But if we go and we look at where is the historical?
I can't remember where it is now either. I'm going to look too because I don't want to.
Historical snapshots. Here we go. All right, so let's go to like even last cycle. So what do we on tweet volume? The peak of last cycle was Jan 21, right? So I mean, look at this. I mean, it's a totally
Litecoin was 4. I mean,
EOS was still 15. Theta was 17. VeChain, NEM was 19. Celsius was 22.
Oh God.
So, and then if we snap back to the last cycle, which the peak was probably about January 2018, right? I mean, NEM was 6. IOTA was 10. Dash was 11, right? So every cycle has its coins, right? And so, there will be new coins that have their moment and then they have their cycle. Unlike equity markets, there's no revenue here. So there's nothing to
yeah, they'll have their cycle and then we'll be talking in, 2028 and laughing about how they're like 200 on that list because there's some new shiny objects. It just shows you how careful you have to be and your time frame and expectations.
Yeah, I mean that's why like everything is time frame. Everything is time frame, right? Like, and also I think one of the biggest things that people just don't look at is look at fully diluted valuation. Like you have to look at not the market cap, but for anybody who doesn't know who's listening, market cap is the value of all the tokens that are currently in supply. But fully diluted valuation is the value of all the tokens that are currently live, plus all the tokens that will go live. And for example,
AKA the actual full supply when everything vests and unlocks.
Yeah. Correct. Like, so if we take, for example, like WorldCoin as another example, 2.01% of the supply is currently circulating, right? And that's just one example. And there's other examples
like
scam.
That. Such a
but
scam.
That means,
they release into low float and oh my God.
Right. But that means that 50, you're going to basically, for price to stay the same over time, the price needs to hold constant with 50 times more tokens being available on the market, 50 times just for price to stay constant. So it's a really important metric to look at. And I know people say bullish unlocks and things like that. And yes, some unlocks are inconsequential. And look, some investors, like I know one of the biggest funds in crypto has been in Avalanche since the ICO and has never sold. And they are one of the largest holders of Avalanche, right? And they're a huge believer in Avalanche. And there's others in Avalanche and other projects that are the same way. So just because things unlocking doesn't mean it's going to sell. But with that said, if you have a token where 100% of it is liquid versus a token that 2% of it is liquid, all things equal, I would think that the token where 100% is liquid, I would feel more confident that price is going to stay constant versus 2% of the thing being liquid.
I mean, that alone probably explains the phenomenon that you just showed on CoinMarketCap, because those are all up in the top 10 when they're low float and their market cap is high, but their FDV or market.
Well, but that's not FDV. That's market cap on CoinMarketCap.
Yeah. I'm just saying, but like all those tokens when they were at their peak were low supply and high demand. And then throughout the bear market, all that supply gets
they're
opened.
Not showing FDV on CoinMarketCap. They rank by
I know they're not showing it. I'm just saying it explains why coins can be hyped at the top of a list. Yeah, and then with the next 3 years, as you go into a bear market and all that supply releases and there's just this constant selling pressure with minimal demand, they end up out of the top 10 for market cap or whatever metric you're using. Just kind of explains the cyclicality of a lot of these tokens that are hyped for a very short period of time and then bleed out.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's I mean, we can take a look, but I mean, there will be a lot of unlocks coming up this year. I think I might have a little chart on this.
I even have the TIE terminals unlocks here.
Dang. No, but I built something which shows which tokens have the most unlocks in aggregate this year, which I think is interesting. Let me see if I can make some. I'll make something very quick.
Creating this in real time. That's what you do.
I know,
guys. I've showed these guys a million times. This is my TIE dashboard that I stare at all day, every day. All my news and screeners, and they got the great ETF one showing ETF total now under. Well, it's loading because I have this crap internet at the moment, but sub 50 billion. You'll see it come up right here. IBIT still pretty close to flipping GBTC. Crazy GBTC is back down to 17 billion now. It was at 27. So total market cap 48. But once you get that built, let me know. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, I got it here. So I don't know if you've seen this, by the way. We have this new tool where you can write a sentence in English and it converts it into a SQL query and outputs data. So I asked which
artificial intelligence.
That is, intelligence is a stretch. Sometimes it works. But here we can see, I mean, Solana still has a lot of unlocks this year, Aptos, Arbitrum, Jupiter, and these are in US dollar value. So keep in mind, some of these tokens are very large, but like unlocks for Bitcoin, that's mining rewards, right? So there's still a lot of Bitcoin mining rewards that are coming to market. I can build something later if you want to share it another day with the community, which is like the percent of supply as well. But you can see some of the tokens that have very large amounts of their token supply coming to market this year. But I think, the big one I'm looking at is, this WorldCoin number is crazy. It's 2 billion plus coming to market this year on a token that's trading at a liquid market cap of, its market cap is 890 million and there's 2 billion coming to market this year. So, yeah.
Sam,
It's a lot. But look, if WorldCoin partners with OpenAI, which apparently they're exploring, who knows?
He owns them both, whatever that means. We'll see.
Maybe you'll
All
need
right, man,
WorldCoins to pay
oh,
for.
what if exactly. You need to use your eyeball to use AI. Just quick before I let you go, I know we're over time, but like, what's your expectation for the next few months, or at least your base case? We know nobody has a crystal ball. Mine has been boring, and then we start to see some appreciation again in the fall. But
yeah, look, I think
I would
boring.
love to
But
be
look,
wrong.
within the industry, talking to people on a day-to-day basis, people in the industry are not bearish. Like they're not. They're like in the last bear market post FTX collapse, every single company was so
Depressed.
stingy with budget, was afraid to spend money, was nervous about what was going on. And right now we're not seeing that. Like we're just not seeing that in the market. Like we're not seeing a huge number of traditional institutions come in. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. Like we're not seeing a large number of new hedge funds or new participants come in the market. But with that said, like people are operating as if this market is going to continue. I mean, that's what we're seeing. So
yeah, for sure.
That doesn't mean that they're right, but like we're being relatively aggressive from a hiring perspective right now. I mean, I think I wouldn't be doing that if I thought that the market was going to go back into a deep bear market like it was in post FTX. And look, I think it also depends. Look, the election is coming up soon. I mean, we're getting close to election day, and I think, look, it doesn't matter where you land on the political spectrum, right? But I think this election is certainly going to have an impact on the SEC, right? And I think I think if the odds start looking like if Trump somehow picks Vivek as his running mate, which isn't going to happen, but if he does, right, or depending on who he puts as his running mate, depends on what he comes out and says, right? And if he starts to take a big lead, could be really bullish for crypto, really bullish. If the expectation is that the SEC is going to put forth regulation that is more pro crypto. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. The election to me is the single biggest thing. Or if, there's some change of power in the Democratic Party, I'm not saying that Biden is a change in power, but, like if there's a change in policy towards crypto or anything else, that's the biggest thing to me. Like if the US introduces pro crypto legislation, it is just like a complete 100% flip the script game changer for the market.
Absolutely agree. Well, we'll see what happens. Let's hope the top's not in forever and we're all dead and we're going to bleed out and be depressed again. I don't think so.
I don't. I think
the more people who do think so, the better for a bounce.
Yeah. And look, it just depends on your investment horizon. If you're investing for next week, maybe don't put money in alts and Bitcoin. But if you're looking at this as a 12-month, 24, 36-month investment cycle, and you're US based, you also pay long-term cap gains versus short-term cap gains tax, right? So, I'm not planning on selling my Bitcoin and my other crypto positions anytime soon.
You and me both, man. All right. Thanks, guys. Check out Josh, of course, on Twitter. It's down in the description.
I'm just bitching about Joel Embiid and the Knicks right now. I got nothing interesting to say.
Dude, we brought him on the right day because he can be appropriately pragmatic and bearish and bullish at any given time, but on the wrong day because he's so depressed about the Knicks that he can't give us an accurate appraisal on the market.
Yeah, don't listen to my market prediction.
They're still up 3-2. But they did get Reggie Miller. Yeah.
We got Reggie Miller yesterday. It was terrible. It was the most classic Knicks. In life, I've learned if you have low expectations, you can never be disappointed. And for the first time, I had real expectations about the Knicks. And as a lifelong Knicks and Jets fan, I should learn my lesson.
Well, welcome to crypto, man. Yeah. Keep the expectations
and
low
crypto and full-time in crypto. I mean, my entire life's a disappointment, right?
We're all very jaded. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And now to look at the charts and see if you should all be depressed as you're obviously feeling. Chris, it's over. It's dead again.
Yeah. We might as well just pack it up and go home, right? Come back in another few years.
Straight to zero. It's unbelievable. Straight to zero.
Nah, just doing, what I've been talking about for over a month now. I said, we're range bound. I said my first scenario, if we're range bound, is to see us get a dip below it. And then, on the daily time frame or so, see a wick back up, or a candle down, and then the next day a candle back up into the range. So right now we've got the breakdown. We're retesting the that's that big channel off that, I've shown it many times before, the big channel off the 2022 bear market low. So it's coming back and retesting that resistance as support at the moment. We just got the pivots updated on the daily time frame. And so the S1 pivot is just down here on this chart, right around 55.6 or so, 55.7. So if we keep on coming down lower, I mean, that's what I'm looking for. That'll also get us the bottom of this descending channel, and then look for a rally back up into the range. What we need to see basically is a breakout, impulsive breakout above this pivot here on the daily at around 64,200 or so, depending on what chart you're looking at. But if you can get impulsive breakout above that, that takes you out through the descending channel resistance there, and you should be looking mid 80s at least on the rally. And so that's kind of where we're at. If we break down again, I've already talked about it. If we we continue to break down rather than just kind of dip down and trap the breakdown traders and rally back up, we'd have the 51 to 52,000 range right here.
Everybody's yelling about that range, though. It concerns me. I mean, listen, it's the most obvious thing ever, right? I mean, if you look at the weekly, that's the one place we've consolidated literally on the move from 38 all the way up. It was the top down here, but like, how often do we get the exact area that everybody's watching? So that means we either bounce right now or right here, or we go all the way down to 44.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, again, it's the levels are laid out. It's not that difficult, right? People they're losing their damn minds online, right? They've been losing on their mind for over a month now, a month and a half. And what's really happened? Nothing's really happened. We've just now dipped below. They got everybody promised them, it has to crash down to 30,000, or, the top has to be in now. If it broke down below the 59,000, it did. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. No, guys, that isn't how it works. Could it go down? Sure. But if you're overly worried about what price is doing, as Scott mentioned so many times on here, and I like to mention a lot, is you've got too big a position size. If you are so concerned about what price, you've got too large a position size, you're too over leveraged, or you're not using any kind of proper risk management. If you don't do those three things, everything's fine. Everything's perfectly fine. And that's how you make it in trading. But everybody wants to hit a home run every time they swing for the, every time they're up there, they want to swing for the fences. And if it doesn't do it right away, they get very, very upset and very nervous. What are we going to do? But right now, I mean, you can see right here, daily RSI, daily Stochh RSI, resetting down into oversold. You can see that volume has dropped off dramatically through this range. We've got a spike of volume now on this break, on the breakdown through here. But again, usually this kind of setup, the volume is coming at the lows of the range, not really at the top of the range. So there's not a lot of selling going on up here. Usually in distribution, what you're going to have is the selling at the tops of the range and not a whole lot of buying at the bottom. You've got accumulation or reaccumulation. Usually what you're going to see is the opposite. You're going to see more volume at the lows of the range than what you're going to see up here at the top of the range, because they're not selling, they're buying. And so you get this final, when you have a series of higher or lower highs and lower lows through the range coming down through what we call phase B, usually you're going to get a spring. And that's the fake out. That's the, get people to go short, because right here, you can see the price is not making higher highs. So the market's still a little bit heavy on the shorts, right? Or not strong enough on demand. So you send it down there to trick them all into it. They all go short. You send it back up. Then they have to cover. Then they have to go long. And it powers it right back up through. So, I mean, again, that's the way I'm looking at it at the moment. And we'll see how it plays out.
This market is moving super fast, by the way, because I was pointing out the other day, you could get long on bullish divergence here, went up, hidden bearish divergence was here. Now we're back to finally oversold with bullish divergence on the 4-hour across a ton. I don't know that this is the bottom, but I think that we could get some really nice relief here. I mean, I'm seeing this on a lot of charts. I don't know if it was on. Oh, and I wanted to show you this chart too.
Yeah.
Just because I pulled up the Ichimoku cloud for the first time in God knows how long, and look at ETH on the weekly here.
Yeah.
Look where it's finding support on all three of these candles and the Kijun right there. But for anyone who doesn't look, a flat cloud top like that on a high time frame is really nice support.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, exactly. The flat on the top, if you're coming back down on it, it works as support. If you're coming up from below, it works as resistance. Yeah, absolutely
Very simple.
fantastic.
But
Looks
yeah,
good.
so that gave me a little encouragement, certainly, in that ETH BTC is bouncing, and actually ETH I think is has retraced less than Bitcoin
Yeah,
on
the
this kind of
alts,
whole drawdown.
the
Not
alts,
so
we got this little breakdown with Bitcoin. The alts haven't really done a whole lot. I mean,
yeah.
they're all looking basically the same. These
Dominance
dailies
has
look
dropped,
great.
actually, interestingly. Like, I just happened to look. I thought, maybe it's the alts that are so popular, like Solana. Those are down so big, and that's what everyone's in. So the perception is
Yeah,
that alts have done way worse. But actually, on this retracement, dominance has dropped for people who aren't paying
yeah.
attention. So alts as a whole have not underperformed Bitcoin on this drop that badly.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what you're seeing. I mean, if you put on just listen, guys, if you go up to indicators, type in pivot, just pivot point standard. That's all you got to do. That pulls these up right here on whatever time frame you're on. But you just look at the daily, and you can see we're all sitting here under the daily. We've got the S1. So here's the easiest way to trade this: is this right here. There's a swing high just above that daily on pretty much all of them. If you break out above that, minimal expected target should be the top of the recent high up here, but you should expect to break out higher. If you happen to drop below the swing low, look for the rally off the R1. I'm sorry, the S1. And that's all you've got to do for all these. If you get it. Now, there is this low volume node here right around, this is Chili's, CHZ.
Yeah.
Right there around 0.095. So if it were to pull down, that'd be the first place I'd look. But if it were to break down and close below that, I mean, we got all this price acceptance here. We could potentially see it dipping down the S1. But if I want to go long, I'm just looking for a breakout above this one right here. It's 13.1 cents. And if I get that, I'm looking to rally up. Right here, FLR, same idea basically here, except it's made its lower low here. You can see that the 50% pullback is right here around the S1. Again, you've got this, your initial target you want to look at is this kind of 2.5 cent area, this low volume node. But if you can break down through that, you might reach the S1. But in this case, again, it's the pivot. If you can get an impulsive breakout and close above that pivot, that means, larger candle spread, larger spike of volume compared to the volume around it, and close above that, you should be looking minimally up here toward about 5 cents. But you should expect probably to break out higher, and probably rally all the way up through at least through the 7.5 cent area on it.
Yeah, now it's just time to start looking for some like big supports down below, and start to get interested, set those stink bids, etc. It's interesting. People saying looked like alts capitulated before Bitcoin. Tenacious saying alts bled worse from 69 to 66 more than 65 to 7. I mean, it actually is true if you take a look, because like I said, Bitcoin has 5 weeks now down. Basically, the top is over here, but basically 5 weeks, and dominance had ridge and now only 3 weeks down. So it does basically show that there was this major hype into altcoins, 5-6 weeks ago, and they sold off first heavily, and then Bitcoin trailed, and probably there wasn't that much liquidity left in alts that people are selling. So
yeah, exactly. And right now, what I'm showing everybody is the easiest way, especially if you're not very very well versed in markets and structure and stuff like that. This one I'm telling you right here is actually the easiest way to probably figure out where do I go long.
Math. Pivots are math. It's not arbitrary, like where you draw your support and where you draw your resistance. The pivots are based on the price action. They're mathematical. So for new traders, it's really the easiest thing.
It really is. You see right here, you hit this low volume node area a few times. So again, looking at this, it's right here by the pivot. So again, this here is Atom. So almost 9.3, 9.4 cents. You get a breakout and close above that, impulsive. Man, I would just be looking minimally up here at probably almost $14 and really expecting to break out higher and probably run beyond 20 off that. But if it does break down here, you're looking for that reversal at the S1 pivot. So if it comes down here, hits the S1 pivot, and then breaks out above this previous interior swing high here, boom, you should be good to go. And finally, I've got DOT here. Again, I was trying to find, alts that look different. And what I was noticing was they all basically look just about the same. They
Yeah,
all
they
look
all
like
looked like they had bearish consolidation there. Capitulation volume to the bottom and floating up on low volume. That's how bear flags and bearish pennants are formed. And we get another breakdown. You want to see if they hold the low or
yeah,
sweep it.
yeah, exactly. And so, once again, came down here, we hit a few times the low volume node here. So, I wouldn't be interested in going long until we're breaking above $7.50 basically, or $7.58. And then initial target right there around $10.63. And then, of course, breaking out further should have you run through the R5 pivot up there just beyond $16. But, again, watch for one potential more push down. If we drop down below that swing low, look to get a reversal around the S1 pivot here. And then you want to get that breakout back up there and again, go long. I mean, it's the least stressful way right now to look at entering alts right now, because so many of them look just like this. So you've got this setup now. You understand what you're looking for, and now all you have to do is be patient. Oh man, patient.
Yeah, I gotta show you something. I gotta show you something that I just was looking at while you were talking. And on the weekly, I wanted to see when's the last time when I said, "Hey, we have 5 weekly red candles for me blue on Bitcoin in a row." I couldn't we had 9 of them in a row in this time 2 years ago. So it's been 2 years, March to May. And I started scrolling back, and throughout the entire last cycle, I can't find 5 red candles in a row. Maybe, literally not even at COVID. This is a pretty big event. There's 4 here.
Yeah,
It never happens. It literally never happens. I can't find it. I'm back in 2018 here. So this is some relief should come. It's pretty historic. Crazy.
Yeah, generally speaking, you kind of expect it. But again, when we're looking at the range, I've said what I think it looks like to me right now, and we'll see if it follows through with that. And, again, if it does, I think a lot of people are going to get caught. Everybody's looking for minimally this 51,000 area, but I'm hearing so many calls since we were, I guess, probably the last couple of days, really talking about 30,000, and I just all the way down. It just doesn't make any sense. All the way down here, because they're looking here, but
the 30,000 calls. I'm starting to hear it, so I like that.
But here's the thing, everybody's like, oh, we haven't had the big pullback. We need to have a big pullback because we always have big pullbacks. But see, that's just a misunderstanding or lack of understanding of what actually goes on in markets, right? You have energy when price, is pulling back. That energy is dispersed in one of 2 ways: either a sharp pullback, which is what everybody's kind of used to seeing, or it's dispersed sideways. And so that's why this killed so many people right here. And then they were afraid to jump out here because that was going to come back. And you remember I told you, I was like, now we're going to have this, this consolidation as we were rising and continue up. And that's what we got here. This is basically the big drop here, or this here. But it's all sideways is what it is. Even here, it's still sideways. Like I think you mentioned it was what, 20 what percent on the pullback there?
I think it's 25, 24-ish right now.
Yeah. So very small for Bitcoin, but we've been going a lot sideways, and we've been doing this a lot more than what we normally do. So I think, we're just seeing this time around, we're just seeing that energy being dispersed sideways because we've got more buying, more demand coming in for those ranges there. And so, it doesn't allow that big, slap in your face pullback that everybody's looking for. And I think that's keeping a lot of people out of the market, honestly.
Yeah, 23.35.
Yeah,
17,000% drop from the top at 73,726 down to 56.5.
Yeah, and on the weekly, if we want to look at the weekly there, Stochh RSI is reset into oversold. We've got semblances of hidden bullish divergence here. Not exactly, because you got this wick down here that kind of throws things off, but basically you've got much higher lows in price. You've got lower lows here on your oscillator. We're above neutral, so we're still bullish on the weekly. And all we've done is pull back again, just right into this area here, just right into this kind of support here, where we have a lot of candle bodies that are all kind of like hovering right around each other here. And all we've done is pull back like halfway into that. So, I get it. People want to look right here to find, the big moves, but you can't ignore what's happened over here.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I like that Stochh bottoming. That's pretty consistent.
Yeah, the Stochh RSI there. Yeah, I like that. So for me, I'm not concerned. I trade the charts what it is, and I understand my time frame. I've got my risk management. So no reason to like freak out. It's the end of the world kind of thing. No Chicken Little over here.
All right, me either. All right, guys, don't be Chicken Little. Expand your time frame. Don't overtrade. Avoid the leverage. You'll be all right. Guys, follow TX West Capital on X. Otherwise, maybe Chris will see you on Spaces soon, and you'll actually get to talk instead of listening to John Reed talk for 2 hours.
Good times, right?
All right, man. I'll see you soon. Guys, see you on Spaces in 20 minutes. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Thanks, man.
That's dope.